Because there'd been such a huge gap in, I think, almost a month now, in my last episodes, or however I might want to call these, and the next few that I'm doing, I thought these are two short chapters, chapter 6 and chapter 7, so I might as well kind of almost do them back to back and together. So chapter 6, I'm hoping you have all heard, and now we will jump to chapter 7. I think anyone who has moved their home a number of times, or even if it's not a number of times, have had significant moves in their lives, when you go through each and everything in your current house. You determine what to keep, what to throw away, what to give away, what to pack and take with you, and then you come to the point where you are moving into the new house. You're looking at the skeleton of this new place which you're going to inhabit, and you're deciding in your head, where are things going to go, how is this going to become mine, especially if it's a rented place. It has been other people's, it has been the landlords and everybody's, and they have done up the space in certain ways already. So then you try to find your own niche, create your own world there. It's quite a transformative period, and I enjoy it. I have had to move it a number of times, like between when I was doing my graduate studies and then started working and everything. I've moved cities, I've moved countries now, and I do think I have enjoyed each of the moves. They add definitely extra experiences, and I think even certain emotions as well, as you leave something behind which you treasured, but the time to close for that has come about, and you are moving on to your next step. And that's why I think this part of the book is precious for me, in that sense that we see Gilly changing from this shy person to the to the mistress of her household, so to say. And she has this house which cousin Galis had pretty strong feelings about and had set up in a certain way, but Galis is now going to try and make it her own. So having said that, let's see, after having taken the first bold step of saying, no, I will manage this myself, this is mine to manage, as she puts it, or as Mrs. Trapp had puts it, she enjoys her lonesomeness. So let's see what Gilly does next. So chapter 7, again, the pen and ink sketch here is one from our previous chapters. It's of the chimney with a flock of pigeons flying around it. And here we start. Back in my bedroom, and alone, I heaved a case onto one of the window seats and started to take out the things. I was thinking hard and not very comfortably. The first thing I must do, I thought, was get in touch with Martin and Martin, cousin Galis's firm of solicitors, and find out if and how much I owed Mrs. Trapp. At least with the firm's backing, there could be no trouble there. Trouble? I took a pull at myself. In the face of an angry flush, a passing resemblance, I must not regress to the fearful bullied child I had once been. And why should there be trouble? I was not an elderly sick lady who needed a housekeeper. I was young and strong and had kept house myself for years. Kept it successfully in a much less attractive and convenient house. I was quite capable of telling Agnes Trapp, "Thank you for past services. and here's the money, and I'll let you know when I want you again. As for her preposterous suggestion that she should move in with me, and there was the reason, surely for the dismay and anger she had shown. It had been a shock and a dash to her hopes of a comfortable future to find a young and vigorous cousin on the doorstep. She had expected an elderly woman, Cousin Galis's contemporary, who would possibly welcome the offer of a live-in housekeeper and a man about the place. Cousin Galis, who liked her lonesomeness, must have felt pretty ill before she could have made such a suggestion, if indeed she ever had. That was ridiculous too. Of course she had. What need was there for the woman to lie? Agnes Trapp was a good neighbour, country style, which meant that she was used to letting herself in and out of her neighbour's house at will, and giving a hand if and when it was needed. One didn't lock one's door in those days in the country. And that was another thing. Surely after Cousin Galis had been taken to hospital, the house would be locked up. So presumably Mrs. Trapp had a key. Something else I would have to be firm about, it seemed. I thought as I heaved the first armful of clothing from my case to the bed, as if it was going to be more difficult than I had imagined to have my own house and to have it to myself. I did not hurry over my unpacking. Perhaps subconsciously I was hoping that Mrs. Trapp would have gone before I went downstairs again, and that anything else that needed to be said could be said tomorrow. And it might well be, I thought to myself, as I folded my clothes or hung them away, that I would be very glad of her help with the rest of the house. She had done this room quite beautifully. There were clean papers in the drawers, and on the base of the wardrobe cupboard the sheets were linen, immaculately ironed and smelling of lavender, and a couple of bulges showed where the hot water bottles, now almost cold, had been put to air the bed. For the old sick lady to take to? There was a candlestick beside the bed, with matches laid near. I smiled as I saw it. The feeling that I had stepped back in time was very strong, but the bedhead light worked when I tried it. The candle was a precaution no more. The bathroom next to the bedroom took me straight back into the 20th century. It too was spotless, white and gleaming, and outside the window the clouds had packed away to show a clear sky of evening beyond the trees. I opened it and leaned out. But before I could do more than get an impression of colour and a flood of green and the remote glimmer of water, I heard from below me and to one side the sound of a door closing. I craned further. Away to the left I caught a movement. There was a path skirting the house, leading presumably from the back door to a side gate that gave on Mrs. Trapp's path through the woods. Mrs. Trapp herself came into view. In each hand was a bulging carrier bag. She hurried down the path and out of sight. Peace had come back, and with it pleasure. I went lightly downstairs to the kitchen. Any more exploring could wait till morning. It had been a long day. I would have supper early and go to bed in that lovely room. I looked but briefly into the kitchen drawers and cupboards, located enough in the way of crockery and cutlery for my evening meal, then lifted Mrs. Trapp's casserole from the oven and raised the lid. It smelled very good. I took a spoon and tasted it. Delicious. Beside it on the oven shelf was a large potato wrapped in foil. Yes, a good neighbour. We should see. Well, Cousin Galis, thank you for everything. I said and sat down to my first meal in my own house. Afterwards, country or no country, I locked up. I found I had been right about the old kitchen. The back door opened straight out of it through a small porch where coats hung and sticks and umbrellas stood with a row of shoes and gumboots. The old kitchen was a square, flagged room dismal in the weak light of an unshaded electric bulb. 2 small windows, blurred with cobwebs, would, even by day, give very little light. One wall was almost filled by a vast rusting range. No furniture beyond a couple of tall built-in cupboards and a deal table, covered with peeling oilcloth and laden with piles of old newspapers and cardboard boxes and other forgotten debris. An earthenware sink under one window, a couple of buckets and a chipped enamel jug, a watering can, and a stiff garden broom. There was no key in the lock of the back door. Presumably this was the one that Mrs. Trapp held, but the door had a couple of very adequate bolts. I shot them home firmly and went to bed. The silence woke me. At first, when I opened my eyes on blackness, I thought I must still be asleep. So used had I become to nights lit by the dirty orange glow of sodium lamps and the intermittent snarling glare of the pit's traffic. Now even the wind had died. There was no sound of rain, no movement of the trees. Slowly, as I lay with open eyes, the darkness dissolved into shapes of varying blackness. The room was a cave of blackness, with the faint oblongs of the uncurtained windows showing indigo. I could see no stars. A long way away, a train whistled, emphasizing the emptiness of the night. From somewhere nearer, but still far enough, came the whining bark of a dog. Not the steady bark of the chained watchdog, but some dog. I thought urgently asking for something, to be let in, to be let out, to be fed, to be freed. It stopped abruptly and the silence returned, to be broken by a much nearer, much fainter, and more disturbing sound even than the dog's misery. Just above my head I could hear a scratching, scrabbling, tapping noise that must mean some small inhabitant of the roof. I lay quite still, listening. Bats? I knew nothing about them, but imagined them as silent creatures hanging in their shelter. In any case, surely they would be out in the night and flying. If swifts or starlings or other birds nested in the roof, they would be gone long ago. Mice? Too spasmodic, too faint. It could not, I told myself firmly, be rats. It could not. I loved animals with all my soul, but I did not desire a close acquaintance with rats. It was not busy enough for rats. In fact, it was an oddly comfortable sound. It was company. I slept. And that is the end of chapter 7.